Welcome to Monday Motivations, 52 weeks to a more purposeful you. This week, we're on week 23, and the topic is Prevail. And we have Lorri Ann Code. And Lorri Ann, we met, oh my gosh, it had to have been at least 10 to 15 years ago. I remember I kept getting told, you need to meet Lorri Ann. And my name is Corry, and my middle name is Ann, but everybody calls, often I'm called Corry Ann. So people are like, Lorri Ann and Corry Ann, you guys are both up to like life coaching. And so they're like, you have to meet Lorri, but thank you so much for being on today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, and you just got back from a retreat.
Yes, I've been leading retreats with actually been leading retreats since 2008 in Tahoe. And then we actually pivoted and started them in going international in 2019. And then since 2019, we've had over 40 since 2019, even during the pandemic, because we need even more now than ever for mental health and well-being and connection. We've had them actually in person, not virtual.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's been necessary for lots of women.
And you live in Northern California?
Yes, I do. I live in Folsom.
Okay, so you live in Folsom, Northern California. And so you did local, semi-local from Folsom to Tahoe for about 9 years, 8-9 years before you went international.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm going to talk more about your retreat in a minute, but I'm going to do a proper introduction so that everybody can get to know a little bit about you. So Lorri Ann Code is an author, certified life and career coach, and certified fitness trainer and Pilates instructor, and a clean eating expert. I know that you're a clean eating expert. You were doing the whole mason jars with fresh cut up veggies before anybody else was. I remember back in the day. Yeah. So she specializes in helping women achieve their highest potential in wellness and fitness through her personalized training, clean eating, and life coaching services. She has been in the health and fitness industry since she was 17 years old. So what, like 10 years ago?
Oh, but maybe 10.
Something like that. It's been a while. She's come to realize the importance of approaching health and fitness by addressing the mind and spirit as well as the body.
Totally. Multidimensional. We're not just one-dimensional. It's not just fitness. You know, we also have our souls, we have our minds and emotional well-being too.
Yeah. So you kind of started out more from the fitness perspective.
Absolutely. So I started in fitness because for me, movement is medicine, and having a very, dysfunctional childhood, which I think most of us have had, but mine was probably a little bit amped up there. And so I really wanted to dive in for more healing for myself. And then I actually started believe it or not, at an internship in my 20s at a battered women's shelter in Stockton. And then I was also doing reentry for women back into society in the San Joaquin County Jail. So going back into abusive relationships. And a lot of that was triggering other things that were happening that would get them back in jail. So I was doing all this. And then when all of that was happening, I had things pop up in my mind, like, sounds very familiar. And, you know, your mind only will allow you to remember so much. So I had a lot of trauma come up at that time. So movement, I would go for a run. It would help me release. It would help me get clear in my head. It was very grounding for me. And then so I took that and made that a career after college. And it was been a really fabulous career, but it's just so one-dimensional. But I found that I really needed to add another piece. So I added life coaching and career coaching in 2005.
I'm going to interrupt real quick. So I recently had an experience in working with different physical therapy modalities. And there's a gentleman in Sacramento, Lino Cedros, he's amazing. And he's been working with people's bodies for decades. And Anywho, I was also working with another company that has kind of a revolutionizing way of working with the body and alignment, and different than chiropractic, different than physical therapy, definitely a great concept. And this business and concept, it is a bit newer and it is very useful and effective. But I found it's effective when blended with other things. And I just adore Lino. He's seasoned, and meaning probably, he's had more life years and life experience in his industry.
I know who he is. I think he works with ultra runners and things.
Yeah, he's very well known in Sacramento. Solid guy. Solid. But anyways, so I had stopped seeing him for about a year because I was on this like new method thing. And he was just so humble in how I go back to him like, okay, my body's jacked up, it's not working, and he would never badmouth this other practitioner. But he goes, you know what? When you have a hammer, everything you look at looks like a nail. And I really loved that concept, not as a criticism to this other practitioner or anybody else in the body industry and helping people fix their bodies. I just think that it's relative kind of to what you're saying, that we might enter into an industry or a practice and we're like, wow, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And the more we work within it, if we are humble and wise, we start to realize there are multiple things that need to blend.
Totally. 100%.
That's kind of what I hear you saying. Like the body is very important, and you now, or have been for many years, blending multiple
modalities.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's so important, because I can write up a fitness program in my sleep, because I've been doing fitness, for a very long time. And I can give it to you and I can say, and then here's what I want you to eat. And then I also want you to do just a little bit of mindset work in the morning, maybe affirmations, maybe gratitude work, and then give it to you and then say, okay, I'll see you in a week. And then, but if there's blocks and limitations going on, or there's a sense of unworthiness, which there is for a lot of us. I mean, I had to work through that for sure, because our parents and their parents' parents weren't trained on how to raise healthy, happy adults. And so I undo a lot of damage, honestly. And so, but I'm grateful for it, because all of those lessons that I learned, now I get to roll in to the practices that I have with women that are in front of me. And it's very rewarding to see huge transformations happen, and because we're doing mind, body, soul. It's not just the body.
Yeah. And so, and kind of tying this, so I'm going to write this down: mind, body, soul. I want to come back to that. But for our topic today, the topic is Prevail. What did you get from this topic, Prevail?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things that came up for me. One was, when everything started changing and we were in the middle of such huge uncertainty, which for most people, uncertainty brings up anxiety, worry, all the things. And so I just went straight to my connection, to my higher power, who I call God. And I think that God's so much broader than just God. I think that that term is so limiting, but I was raised Catholic, so I call him God. And so I went straight to God and I said, how do you want me to handle this? And I was just, I said, do you want me to have an opinion? Do you want me to take a side? Because all of this divisiveness was happening. And what I was told was just, here's a torch. I just saw this huge, I have a really beautiful connection with my higher power, because I connect every day, just like any other relationship. If I love my husband, I need to connect with him every day. So I have this beautiful relationship where I feel really clear connection. So what came to me was I was handed a torch, like this big torch. And what I was told to me was just be the light. Just be positive, be be the place to where people can go and just feel uplifted and maybe get some hope and be inspired and maybe just continue to create sacred space so that women can still connect in spite of their differences. It doesn't matter. All that stuff doesn't matter. What matters is that we're all human beings. We all want to support each other and see each other. And we haven't been able to see each other. We haven't been able to be with each other. And so I was just like, okay, I'm going to do what you tell me to do, not what all of this tells me to do. And so I did. And it's been, I'm going to tell you, prevailing with my mindset and my connection and with my knowing was huge. So I love the topic for today.
Well, I like how you're just sharing with, those listening and watching. Part of Prevail is to connect back into who do we submit to? Like,
absolutely.
And I love that it sounds to me like with the Catholic background, and when you say higher power, you're willing to, it's like, you're not going to be stuck in a box when it comes to God. No. And because God for different people can mean different things.
Absolutely. And I honor that.
Right.
I'm not God.
That's what I love right there. I'm not God.
No. So yeah. I honor your connection, and whoever else is listening, I honor your connection. Whatever you call God, I honor your connection to your higher power.
And this is, I don't want to go too off topic. I am also, just what about for people that don't believe in higher power, universe, God, nothing. So how do we prevail? I think prevailing, I guess the thing I want to say is that prevailing looks different to all of us.
Totally.
Depending on fundamental beliefs that we have. Fundamental, so my truth versus another person's truth. So how this person prevails is going to look different than how I prevail. So for the context of our discussion today, I'd love to just kind of highlight how Lorri Ann Code, how you prevail. So I hear, go ahead.
I'm a triathlete as well. So sometimes you have to prevail during some really tough trainings. Mindset's super important. Having belief that you can do it, that you can, so prevailing, having a mantra, like when we're training, that's one example. Another example of prevailing would be pivoting. So prevailing can be pivoting. So, so like during this crazy last few years, I have pivoted several times because I was feeling, yes, I'm prevailing, but I always feel that that sometimes swimming upriver is not wise. So if I can just go, okay, this doesn't make sense because I feel like I should be great in gray season flow. This does not feel like gray season flow. This feels like I'm now struggling way too hard. So maybe it's time to pivot. Now it depends on the subject matter, and it depends on, am I pivoting because I'm afraid, or am I pivoting because I know that it's the wisest course of action? So I don't really, if I'm fearful, I go through fear. I'm not really very fearful of very many things anymore because of my life experience. I'm really not very, except maybe spiders.
Okay. Many things. So the first thing that you touched on was kind of that humility towards God, towards your higher power. And then the second thing you're bringing up is and I think when you say pivoting, and the more you describe it, it sounds like having choice to decide when to press through and when to shift course.
Yes, absolutely. So for example, so when during the shutdown, I had an opportunity with my boot camps, which are outside. And so, we social distance, we have Clorox, we have Lysol, all the things. And so everything was shut down, including the parks. And so my husband said to me, goes, so you're not going to have boot camp anymore, right? He goes, you're going to not do it because that's, that's what what is being said to do. And I just said, I prayed about it, and I get that I'm supposed to still have boot camp, so I'm still going to have boot camp. And so I prevailed, and I went and had boot camp, and we played our music, and the women all came together, and they were all supporting one another. And then and we were at McKinley Park, which is right down, in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And so I looked over my shoulder, and there was a police officer driving by, and I was like, my heart was pounding because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. But I thought, if I'm out here exercising and I'm supporting women and I get arrested, well, then so be it. And so I felt it. So what ended up happening was that he went like this to me. He gave me the thumbs up.
Oh.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was just like so reassuring. It's like, okay, you're a human being seeing another human being doing her best.
Mm-hmm.
My dog came in and she opened the door. So I'm gonna shut the door again.
Absolutely. What's your dog's name?
Little Bear. She's the best. She's such a joy bringer. Oh my gosh.
I think this is so important. Okay, so first thing is humility. It's not like I'm the be all know all. There's your God, you look for direction, and then you hear direction, and then there's the faith of executing. So you go to execute, and then when there's resistance, you're asking yourself, is this fear in which I press through, or is this actually resistance that's actually protecting me and shifting me in a different direction?
Totally.
And you said, what was the thing you said about race, season, flow?
Oh, grace.
Oh, grace.
Grace, ease, and flow. So like,
grace.
So like when I'm coaching a client, and a client is going, this just doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm banging my head against a wall. It feels so hard. And so then we did dissect it and go, okay, where's the hard? What is it? And then we walk through it. So for my own self and my own personal life, if I am really, like, for instance, with the retreats, we really wanted to have my daughter Bailey was in Bali. She actually lived in Bali for a while, and they came home right when everything was shutting down. March of 2020, she came home, and we were like, we had this intention. We had 2 retreats that were full, that we were going to be doing in 2020 in Bali. And so my mindset was like, I'm going to press forward, and we're having our retreats in Bali. We're gonna do it.
We're doing it.
Well, then at some point it was like, oh my gosh, I was waking up in the middle of the night, and that's when I know, like, I will get tapped on the shoulder by God if I'm doing something that's not correct. So waking up in the middle of the night and going, okay, this does not make sense. So I just woke up and I went and told my daughter Bailey, I said, we're not going to do Bali this year. We're going to shelf it. And so we shelved it. And then we went where there was grace, ease, and flow, which is in Costa Rica and in Sayulita. This whole side of the world, there was grace, ease, and flow. There wasn't much grace, ease, and flow over on that side of the world. And so we just pivoted. And that's pivoting, grace, ease, and flow, and prevailing, all wrapped up into one.
So when somebody is faced with resistance, how do you discern between pivot towards grace, ease, and flow versus press through, this is just fear? And how do you discern the difference?
Because fear is really just false evidence appearing real. It's really not. It's what your perception is. And so you might be called to step up. You might be, because if you're presented with a lesson and you don't walk through it, it will come back in another form. Maybe it's another person with the same lesson. Maybe it is something personally that you're walking through that comes up again because you need to relearn it or you haven't walked through it. So it's really looking at it and going, okay, is this prevailing through fear strengthens your character? It's like one of the most powerful things that I feel like I've ever done in my life. I was, in an abusive relationship, and it was very much about domination and intimidation and really trying to have control over me, mind, body, and soul. And I really wanted to stay in that relationship because I had, 3 children. And so, but at some point, it was getting to where there was no gray season flow. I was just lost in that. And I was fearful, but I also was really feeling like I left it originally for my children. And then eventually I left for me, but first because I was like, okay, I have 2 boys and I have a girl. So I could prevail and stay in this marriage because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to stay together, and and everything on the outside looked perfect. I mean, we would look like the all-American family. And I had a black eye one day, and I said, "Oh, I fell and hit a doorknob," and I just was so shame-filled about allowing myself to get in that situation and to be in that relationship and to allow it to happen. So to prevail and stay in that relationship, would have been, but so I had to walk through fear to get out. So really it's looking at with my clients, it's looking at the same thing, what are your fears? And why are you so dedicated to wanting to stay? So, and then looking at each situation individually and seeing, okay, is this a lesson? Is this a time for you to pivot? Is it a job where a Monday night your stomach hurts because you have to go to work on Monday? Is that what it is? So why does your stomach hurt? What is it about? And then, is it your boss? Is it that you just don't like the work? So all of that.
Well, I love, you're the perfect person to talk about this with the life experience of leaving an abusive relationship to talk about prevailing, because so when we hear the word prevail, many people will think, okay, let's white knuckle it, let's press through, be tough, take it on. But part of prevailing, I just love that you brought the pivot piece to it, because it's both.
It's both. And, if you try to prevail in an abusive relationship, you end up a shell of yourself. And then you're teaching your children that's how we prevail. We just suck it up. And I come from generations of that. So it's like,
oh, me too.
So it's normal for you. You suck it up. You suck it up and you stick it out. And it's, so you understand.
I'm actually doing a research paper right now. I'm finishing, I'm getting a certificate in biblical studies. And my last project is a research paper on how to show up for somebody suffering from abuse. And a lot of the advice that's given to people, especially from religious settings, many different types of religions, is to tell the person that's enduring the abuse is to stick it out, do it for your children. The Bible says, or the Torah says, or whatever the book is that you follow says. And prevailing sometimes is pivoting. So it's really powerful. And I like also that you bring it up. It could also be in many things in the workplace. People stayed, like, especially baby boomers, they stayed in jobs until they retired because they were loyal and pride in I've been here 30 plus years. It's kind of sad that the pendulum has swung, I think, too far in the other direction, where people are like, it's been a year, time for a new company. Like, I've been here 2 years.
I know. That's so true. That's such a great point, because we will just take it. And, that is a whole nother wide open subject that I'll just touch on for a minute. I can't imagine people working 5 days for 2. It just is like you're working 5 days to retire when you're beaten up and broken, and you work for 2 days. And then a lot of times, because they need to numb out, they're drinking or doing all sorts of things on the weekend just to numb out so they can do the other 5 days. And that's no way to live, So I really, prevailing is really important for entrepreneurs and for us that are growing businesses, like to prevail when challenges come up. Also in relationships that are worth it, it's important to prevail. And really try to figure out solutions, but to prevail at the sake of one's own self and your soul, because a lot of those people give their soul away for a job, and it's like the job will replace you just like that.
Exactly.
So I just, and why, and people sometimes stay and don't live their dreams out of fear as well, and so prevailing as a beautiful quality. I mean, I love it as an athlete. I love it as a coach. I love it as a human being, the human spirit, and all the amazing things that when human beings prevail. But we need to know the difference.
And that it's almost like there's a flip side to every coin, and I've been thinking a lot about how can we transfer wisdom from one generation to the next, and there has to be a more effective way for people to acquire wisdom than the school of hard knocks, because and I think one way to explain it is that there's a lot of half truths that when we white knuckle it and make the half truth the only truth, that's when it stops being effective. And wisdom is about understanding that there's always a flip side to every coin, and it's about knowing when to apply which part of the coin to the situation. So when it comes to prevail, it's about when to press through and overcome a fear versus when to pivot and create in a different direction than you were hard set on doing.
And I was hard set on Bali. I was hard set. We were going to Bali. Now we're finally going to Bali, but it's taken, it's been 2.5 years, so yeah.
Yeah, well, I actually want to pivot the conversation as we start to close this down and talk about, this gift that I think you bring the planet, or at least Northern California. I don't know, now you're all over the place, but I want to talk a little bit about your retreats. And I want to bring my own personal kind of spin on it. I find it very interesting that in let's just say from the Hebrew Bible and the 10 Commandments, so if there's 10 commandments, isn't it interesting that one of them is a commandment regarding a Sabbath, a commandment regarding a day of rest? Isn't it kind of interesting that in the stories of creation from many different people groups, not just the Hebrew people, that there was God for the Hebrews and gods in other people groups that created everything, and then there was rest. Like, so regardless of people's religious beliefs, we all know we need sleep.
Right, absolutely.
So when you think of like either a Sabbath day, a day of rest, this concept of having a time to rest and reflect, I think it's really powerful that your business has been shifting towards these retreats. And we don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but I was wondering if you could share a little bit about why did you start doing retreats? Because your business really didn't it start out with the Mama Boot Camp?
Yeah, Mama Boot Camp, which is still going, and I have coaches who work for me, but really I was just so one-dimensional. And then my daughter said, she goes, "You're so spiritual and you're so connected to God and your higher power." She goes, why don't you ever talk about that? And she said, because that's such a huge part of you. And she would always come to the Tahoe retreats, and she said she felt like she had 14 moms there, because we'd have 14 women and they would all be like watching over Bailey and we'd be doing our things and stuff. So the retreats are all about mind, body, soul, taking care of you. So we have massage, but we also talk about, I have a process called the AHA process, which is a soul process. And we start with that for self-discovery. And then we wrap it up with the power wheel, which which really is to fill up your own bucket so that, because we don't usually think about what we need as women. We usually are thinking about, everybody else and nurturing everybody else. And so I love the retreats because we have creative play. We learn, through taking care of ourselves, self-care, fabulous food, and you're totally pampered. You're totally taken care of. They're not allowed to pick up their dishes. It's like you get to completely just be pampered and let me pour into your cup. So we do all kinds of fun activities. We hike at most of them. We hike in Tahoe. We did a waterfall, fabulous, magnificent waterfall hike in Costa Rica. We go on a monkey boat tour because it's also about connecting with each other and having sister circles. There's so much wisdom with us as women that we just don't share enough. And so lifetime friendships are made at the retreats. It just is always so exciting. And, it's so interesting. There's always a theme at each retreat. It's like, maybe people are transitioning. We had one where everybody was exploring their connection with their higher power. It was just so many different layers. So I love it.
Okay, so for anybody watching, that, for women watching that are like, I need to pause and I need a time to kind of rejuvenate.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 3-day, 5-day, and 6-day options.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3-day retreats in Tahoe,
Mm-hmm.
5-day retreats near Puerto Vallarta.
Uh-huh.
And okay, and then 6 and 7-day treats in Greece, Bali, and Costa Rica.
Yes.
And where can everyone find these retreats? Is it on your website?
It's rechargethesoul.com.
Okay, rechargethesoul.com.
Yeah, and they could also text me directly at 916-300.
Okay.
8576.
Okay.
Texting is always easy and nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then about how many women are in these retreats?
So we have anywhere from 12 to 16.
Okay.
And so, sometimes they're mother-daughter retreats. Sometimes, yeah, they're pretty amazing.
Wait a minute. Sign me. I'm serious.
They're amazing. We have a Tahoe one. My May 13th is full, but July has openings. And they're amazing. You'd love it, honestly.
Sign me up. Okay.
Okay.
Skylar and I
would love that. I would love that.
We are going. I'm so excited. We're going to see Lady Gaga in September. I have not ever been to like any really big concerts. I've done lots of like country and like folk, like I love Brandy Carlisle, but I've never done anything. This is gonna be crazy.
It's gonna be great. We're
gonna dress up like twins. I told her, I'm like, limitless outfit budget. We're gonna go like to the Goodwill. No.
Where is the concert at? Where is it at?
I'm gonna do like crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, okay. So back to topic. So on the topic of Prevail, if you were to have one sentence to give yourself and others advice, it could be a compound sentence, but just one sentence.
Okay.
What is your nugget of wisdom on the topic of Prevail?
To check in with yourself and ask yourself, are you in fear, which is false evidence appearing real? Is it time to pivot? Or is it really time to press forward and prevail and build your strength muscle, your bravery muscle? Ask yourself that question. We always have the answers. Yeah. So check in with ourselves. I love it. Thank you so much. So welcome.
I hope everybody got at least one or more nuggets of wisdom when it comes to Prevail. And please join us again next week. Week 24, the topic is essence on motivation. So definitely share Lorri Ann's website, rechargethesoul.com. Consider attending a retreat and join us next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.